Hi everyone. So this is going to be a very short, very raw footage type of video, but I realized it had been a while since I've caught everyone up or kind of reflected on what's happening. What's been going on? Where am I at? Well, I'm excited to say that I'm officially a PhD candidate. So that means that at least in terms of my program, that I have fully defended the written and the oral presentation, defense of my qualifying exams and also of my dissertation proposal. And so basically that means that I completed 4 different exams. One is a general topic of the area of the field, and then one is specific to the research area that I'm interested in, and then a methodological related question, and also like an outside member from a different department. For me, I had the option to do an in-person exam for a shorter period of time or um, an outside like take home style type of exam where I would have longer period of time and access to materials, and then I would return it at the end of that time period. And I chose the longer one because, as I've mentioned before, I get really bad test anxiety and I get overwhelmed and I'm bad at rote memory. So I knew that having that option to access information and materials would be extremely helpful. So that was my choice. And I loved it. It was one of those things where I feel like the buildup to this phase is so intense. We often, and I know I have, like, overthink it. We think, wow, this is going to be so challenging. And I'm not downplaying it either. So bear with me. But we build it up to be this just very intimidating monster of a thing that we have to deal with. And then when the moment got here, it was almost happening in such a fast way that it happened just like in a blink of an eye. And then you get to the end of it and you go, oh my goodness, it's over. Like, I finished this phase that I've been building up for so long. And I I just people asked me how I felt afterwards, and I just kind of went, I don't know. Like, I'm still processing this. So it doesn't fully sink in immediately, at least it didn't for me. I'm also very lucky. I have a great committee. I know that having some committee conflict can make it this process far more challenging, but I was very lucky that the people I wanted on my committee for very specific reasons were willing to be on my committee, and it just made such a world of a difference. And so they were very supportive through the whole process. The questions I did get during like the actual like in-person defense, they asked very good questions that were more focused on ensuring that I can elaborate on what I've talked about and also contribute towards, the development of my dissertation. So basically the quick version of what this looked like. I think that everybody sees kind of the end result, but they don't often see the process that got them there. And I think that that was the most tedious part. I had anticipated that I would take my exams around now, like around April, but apparently my timeline, I took them like a month in advance, but it was great. Winter break was really intense. I didn't have much of a winter break. I did take time off, like I made sure I gave myself time, but I didn't have much of a winter break because I was just studying. I was reading, I was studying, I was taking notes, I was outlining, I was very actively reading that information. And for me, pro tip, if you can, have your readings for your qualifying exams very much overlap with your dissertation. Naturally, they should, but sometimes I think that like the way that we interpret the qualifying exams to be, we end up with like a whole list of readings that don't really help with the dissertation. But for me, that allowed me to be reading for the exams and be preparing my dissertation proposal at the same time. And so that made such a world of a difference. And then when I got back to school, I was, already writing or outlining full sentence outlines of my proposal. I had portions of it already written, but that first month was so intense of just really trying to get this proposal written. And because I'm doing a 3 article dissertation, which means like I treat it as like 3 separate papers, I'm basically writing the first half of 3 different papers in basically like 2 months. And so it was very intensive, but it was very, I don't know, it was a very satisfying experience for me because I really love what I'm studying. And so while it was very challenging, and I have an advisor that like is really trying to like push me forward in terms of my knowledge in a good way, in a very productive way. So it was just like this really intensive, it's all happening at once, so you don't have time to think about it kind of feeling. But I made it through. I got to a point where I had to basically ask my advisor, like, please tell me if this is proposal ready versus journal ready, because I was so, even to the day that I was submitting it, I didn't feel like it was ready or good enough to be submitted, because I just didn't feel like I had my points articulated well enough. And so I had to kind of get out of my own head to be able to make sure that I submitted this. And then basically immediately after submitting my proposal, which was almost longer than my thesis collectively, but granted, I also had 3 separate articles, and 1 article was practically a full paper. So bear that in mind. So like I had about 70 to 80% of my dissertation already written. And so it was so cool to go in the next day with my exams and not have my proposal kind of hanging over my head. And by doing that process, I was able to have a clear mind of my arguments and how I was going to articulate my points in terms of my qualifying exams, because I had already been reading. But while I was reading, I was also forming my arguments or discussions for my dissertation proposal. So like it was already kind of generating in my mind. And so the great thing though is also my committee formatted my questions for the exam to help improve my dissertation. So now I have like great feedback for the revisions of those sections of my dissertation proposal. And so that process was, it was an intense 2 weeks. I was very tired by the end of the days. Like I mentally couldn't process anything else. But the exams weren't as bad as I had imagined them to be in my head. It isn't to say that they are hard, but I think what took that difficulty down some too is just the nature of how I prepared. So that was very fortunate for me. But that, I don't know, it was interesting. I feel like I came across some of the most interesting articles that I really want to take a deeper look at now while I was in my exam. It was really interesting. But I didn't want to let myself get too distracted by what I was using the articles for. So it was a really cool, that's kind of the most interesting experience I think about taking exams for like the very specific area that you're interested in. Because at least for me, like I'm actually interested in the topic. And so it's enjoyable while also difficult. And then the defense was very relaxed, at least for me. I think I have a really great committee that, they're not going to let you just slide through, but they're not going to be okay. They're not going to like push you down either. They're going to try to make sure that you're prepared for the harder questions and that you like can articulate what you need to know, but they're also going to help with that like idea generation and support and encouragement of, yeah, you're doing a great job kind of thing. So that validation is just, it's amazing, especially in academia, because I know that that doesn't always happen for people. So it's a very rewarding experience for me. And so now I'm halfway through the semester, like officially a PhD candidate. And now it's just a matter of conducting what I've proposed. And I say that as if it's something simple now, and it's not, but it's exciting to see that next step happening. And that realization that I'm closer to the end than I am in the beginning. And that's the most bizarre part, I think, of all of this, is the fact that, like, that realization of where you're at, and the fact that, like, wow, I have actually been here for this period of time, and I'm actually closer to graduation than I am starting the program. So it's just, I don't know, it's a really cool, rewarding experience. And I feel like I know I promise these longer videos, but it's just, they take a lot of time. And as I mentioned, dissertation phase is a lot. But now that I've, like, at least stepped past that proposal phase, I think I can, hopefully in another video or a series of videos, I will kind of explain a little bit more detail what each part of that looked like for me, and how I managed it all. Because I think that that's sometimes the biggest challenge, is like, you see other people doing it and you just wonder, like, how how did you manage all of this? And sometimes I wonder, I'm like, did I even know how I managed it? But at least I can, like, share what I experienced, and whether or not it helps you, it might tell you what to do or what not to do for yourself. So we'll see what the next videos entail. Until next time, good luck with whatever it is on your endeavors, and I'll see you in the next video.